I didn't know it then, but the last time I saw my mother smile like that, really smile, was on a rainy weekend in 1989. We'd rented a crumbling little cottage by a lake in the Catskills. I was 6. Brianna was still in diapers. Mom had taken her hair out of its bun, let it go soft around her shoulders, and she laughed when Dad burned the sausages. It was the only time I remember her looking weightless. That memory stayed with me. Not as a grand ambition, but as something quieter, like a promise I made to no one. Years later, when I had the chance, I bought land on that same lake. I designed a home with wide windows, wood beams, and a wraparound porch so you could hear the water at night. I didn't tell anyone this, but I'd built it with her in mind. A place she could retire to. A place where she might let her shoulders down again. My name is Helen Whitman. I'm 42 years old. I run a boutique software firm I started in my early 30s after leaving a corporate job that never quite let me be a person. I'm not married, no kids. I've been called driven cold efficient sometimes in the same breath, but I pay for my parents' dental. I send gifts on time, and for 3 years I helped cover Brianna's student loans without telling her. Brianna Bree, to everyone but me, is 10 years younger. Blonde, lively, good with people. She always seemed to know how to show up at the right moment with a smile or a joke. She didn't stay long in any job, but people forgave her for that. She's just finding her path, Mom used to say. I'd found mine early. No one ever called me brave for it. Our parents, Frank and Linda, worked long hours in their hardware store when we were growing up. They were decent, tired people. They never missed a tax payment, but they missed a lot of dinners. I learned early how to keep the house running. Bree learned how to be liked. I hadn't seen them much over the past year. Work kept me in Seattle, and I was cautious after the pandemic, especially around Mom, who'd had a bout of pneumonia in 2021. Still, I sent regular updates. I invited them to the lake house for weekends. They always said maybe next month. I assumed they were waiting for a quieter season. The lake house wasn't just real estate to me. It was the one thing I'd built that wasn't about strategy or scaling. It was a memory remade into wood and stone. And no matter how far I'd drifted from the rest of the family, I held on to this belief that when the time came, I'd hand my mother the keys and she'd say, "You remembered." That was the shape of the story in my head. But stories don't always get told by the people who write them. It was a Sunday morning in late April. I had just poured a second cup of coffee and sat down to review some numbers for a client. My phone buzzed on the counter. A Facebook notification Brianna had tagged our mother in a photo album. The cover read, "Surprising Mom at the most beautiful place to celebrate 70 incredible years," and below it, "Couldn't have asked for a better day with the people who love her most." I opened the album slowly. My thumb hovered over the screen longer than it needed to. The first image loaded Mom in a pale blue dress, caught mid-laugh as she leaned over a cake with pink roses. She was sitting in the wicker chair from my sunroom, the one I'd driven 3 hours to pick up because it reminded me of her. In the next photo, the camera pulled back. I saw the full porch mine strung with fairy lights and paper lanterns. Bree stood behind Mom, hands on her shoulders, grinning like a girl who'd just solved Christmas. A musician played cello by the railing. The lake shimmered in the background. Every angle screamed the house I built. The cedar beams, the long oak table, the quartz countertops I'd debated for weeks. All of it. But not a single part of me was there. I kept scrolling. Cousins, neighbors. Some of Bree's college friends I hadn't seen since her 3rd graduation party. Mr. Becker still in his fishing vest, standing by the fireplace I'd custom designed. Toasts were raised, plates were cleared, candles were lit. I wasn't mentioned, not once, not in the captions, not in the tags. I called Bree. No answer. 10 minutes later, a text arrived. "Oh, hey, yeah, kinda last minute. Didn't think you'd be in town. Mom really needed a lift." It turned out so sweet I stared at the screen until the letters started to blur. Then I called my mother. She answered quickly. "Helen, so good to hear your voice. You had your birthday at the lake house," I said. A pause. "Oh, yes." "Bree set it all up. She handled everything. You knew and you didn't think to tell me. Well, we figured you were working and Bree said it was short notice. Honestly, it was just a little thing. 40 people at a catered party is not a little thing, Mom. Well, it wasn't about the size. It was about the feeling. Bree made it feel special. It was my house. Another pause. Longer. Well, you're not there that often, sweetheart. And Bree did all the coordinating. I just showed up and smiled. I sat with that. Then she added almost cheerfully, "You know how you don't really care for big crowds. I care when I'm erased from the picture." Oh, Helen, don't be dramatic. It was just a party. That evening, I opened a bottle of wine I'd bought on a trip to Florence. I'd been saving it for this exact day for a toast with Mom. Instead, I sat by myself on the back deck watching the bay turn silver in the twilight. I drank 2 glasses, then poured the rest down the drain. Later that night, Bree posted more photos. In one of them, Mom held a shawl I had sent her last Christmas. The caption read, "She's never felt more loved." I didn't respond to Bree's texts after that night. There didn't seem to be a sentence I could write that wouldn't sound either small or cruel. Instead, I pulled out an old notebook from the kitchen drawer. The kind I used in college, lined pages no flair. I opened to the first blank space and started listing what I remembered. The flu winter of 1996. I was 13. Mom and Dad had both caught it at once. I made soup, ran laundry, called in sick for Dad. Bree was 3. She kept crying for someone to read to her, so I taped my voice on a cassette and left it by her bed. In 2008, when Bree missed a final and nearly lost her scholarship, I drove 6 hours overnight to talk to the dean. She passed. She never asked how it happened. I never told her. In 2015, when Dad's store almost closed, I wired money into their account. Mom thought it was a tax refund. Dad said it was luck. They didn't ask where it came from. I wrote down every quiet thing I'd done, and then I stopped. Not because I ran out, but because I realized how many of them were never meant to be seen. Not really. That was the problem. I had spent so long believing the right thing didn't need an audience. That belief didn't hold up anymore. Bree wasn't evil. She was just fluent in visibility. She understood how to move through the world in a way that gathered attention like pollen. She gave hugs in front of cameras. She wrote handwritten notes and left them on pillows. She remembered birthdays and made everything sparkle. I worked behind walls. A week after the party, I called the property manager for the lake house. I told her to schedule a deep clean and send me the report. She hesitated. "I thought you were okay with the event," she said. "Bree said it was a family gathering you approved." "She told you that, yes, ma'am." "She said it was all arranged. I wouldn't have allowed a party otherwise." There were about 40 guests, catered food. Someone spilled wine in the sunroom. We tried our best to clean it up. When the photos came through, I studied them like evidence. My pale rug now carried a deep maroon stain barely hidden under the throw blanket. Scratches lined the hallway floor. A chipped corner on the kitchen island I'd commissioned from reclaimed oak. It wasn't just damage. It was permission taken without asking. I invited them to dinner. It wasn't a dramatic call, just a message in our family group chat. "Would love to see you all for dinner next Saturday. I'll bring food. Your place at 6. No one asked why. No one declined. I arrived with a lasagna salad and a bottle of wine no one touched. The house smelled like lemon cleaner. Bree was already there, curled on the couch in leggings and a sweatshirt that said, "Good vibes only." Frank sat in his recliner flipping through the muted TV. Linda was fussing with napkins. No one mentioned the party. We made it through salad before I said, "Can we turn off the TV? I have something I'd like to go over." Frank looked surprised but reached for the remote. The room went quiet. I pulled out my laptop. "I want to show you a few things I said." First, the photo of the wine stain, then the deep scratches along the hallway floor, the chip in the kitchen island. I clicked slowly, letting each image linger. "These are from the house," I said. "After the party." Bree shifted. "Okay, but it's just a little wear and tear, Helen. It was a celebration." "You didn't ask." She shrugged. "It was Mom's birthday. You were probably working anyway." I didn't answer. Just clicked to the next slide, a screenshot of Bree's Facebook post, the one with the caption about being surrounded by everyone who loved Mom most. Linda set down her fork. "It was a beautiful day," she said quietly. Everyone came together. Bree made it happen. "And you didn't think to invite me?" I said. "We assumed you were busy," Frank offered. "You've been out of town so much lately." "You didn't forget," I said. "You made a decision." Bree crossed her arms. "Oh, come on. You act like this is some grand betrayal. It was a party. We thought it was better not to pressure you. Better for who I don't know, Helen. You always make things complicated. There's always paperwork, a system, a policy. You built this perfect house and then disappeared into work. We filled it for one day. That's all." I looked at her. "You used my silence as permission." The room was still. Frank cleared his throat. "So what, now you want an apology? You want us to pay for a new couch or something?" "Yes," I said. "I do." Bree laughed. "You're seriously invoicing your own family. I'm holding you accountable for the damage. And for using my property without consent. If I'd done this to either of you, I know how it would land." Linda spoke gently. "Honey, this isn't like some corporate thing. It's family." "No," I said. "It's both." They blinked. "I built that house with the idea that one day Mom would live there. I designed every inch of it with her in mind. And then you used it for a party that excluded me. You rewrote the story. And you used my name to do it." Bree opened her mouth, then closed it. I shut the laptop. "You don't have to agree. But you do have to understand this from now on. If you want to use the house, you ask. If you break something, you fix it. If I'm part of this family, I get to be in the room, not just the bank account." No one spoke for a while. The lasagna sat untouched. Outside, a wind chime rattled faintly. Frank finally said, "Maybe we could have handled it differently. But this feels harsh." "So did being erased," I said. I stood, gathered my things, paused in the doorway. "You didn't just forget me. You left me out on purpose. I won't let it happen again." The next morning, I sent an email. It had 3 attachments, a PDF invoice, a property use agreement, and a side-by-side comparison of pre- and post-event photos. The invoice totaled $460.84. I itemized the professional cleaning, the upholstery repair, and the flooring touch-ups. No markup. Just the numbers. The second document was a usage policy. Nothing dramatic. 4 bullet points. Written request required 2 weeks in advance. $1,000 refundable damage deposit. Pre- and post-use photo documentation. Signed liability waiver for all guests. I sent it to Bree, Frank, and Linda with a brief note. "Going forward, please use these guidelines if you'd like to access the lake house. As always, I'm happy to share what I've built, but not without respect." An hour later, Bree posted to Instagram. Photo of Mom holding a framed print from the party. Caption: "Some people forget what love looks like when they chase money. We didn't. She didn't tag me. She didn't have to." Frank called me that evening. He didn't sound angry, just tired. "Was all that really necessary? I think so." "You're turning this into something it doesn't have to be." "No, Dad. I'm turning it into what it already was." He sighed. "You've always been particular, and you've always let her act like she owned things she didn't pay for." There was a long pause. "I know you've done a lot. I just hate seeing you all this divided." So did I. Until I realized I was the only one holding the pieces together. Later that night, I got a reply from Bree. Just one line. "You really think this makes you look strong?" I didn't answer. The next morning, I transferred the house's smart lock system to a restricted access profile. I didn't block them. I didn't change the locks. I just made the door ask questions first. It was nearly a month before they visited. Frank had texted first. "We're coming up Saturday if that's okay. No agenda, just us." I said yes, then spent the morning cleaning a house that didn't look messy. They arrived just after noon. Linda brought lemon bars in a plastic container, the same kind she used when I was a kid. Frank carried a folding chair for the porch. I offered coffee. We didn't talk much at first. Linda wandered the house slowly. She paused in the sunroom where the wine stain had been. The fabric looked clean, but I watched her fingers trace the edge of the armrest anyway. "You kept the chimes?" she said softly, nodding toward the porch. "They sound better in the wind than in theory," I replied. We sat. The three of us. The lake was flat and gray that day, the kind of stillness that presses on the ribs. Frank finally broke the silence. I think we got used to you being the one who handled everything. I did handle everything I said, quietly. He nodded. I guess we started believing that meant you didn't need anything in return. Linda looked down at her lap. I didn't know how much it cost you to be so capable. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I reached into the side table drawer and pulled out a photo me at 13 holding a cake I'd made from a box mix my arm around Mom's shoulder. Bree's nowhere in it, just the two of us. Linda took it in her hands. Her face didn't change, but something shifted. I forgot this day, she said. I didn't. We sat in silence again, but it was different now. Not empty, just full of things none of us had words for. As they were leaving, Frank turned at the door. You still want this place to be hers someday? I looked out at the porch. The wind had picked up. The chimes answered for me. Bree never apologized, not in words. But 2 weeks later, a payment arrived through Zelle, $460.84. No note, no subject line. Just the exact amount from the invoice. I stared at it for a long time before I accepted. A few days after that, I hosted brunch at the lake house. Nothing grand. Just me, Frank, Linda, and a simple spread of eggs, fruit, and muffins. No candles, no toasts, no hashtags. I set 4 places, but only 3 were filled. The 4th chair stayed empty. I didn't comment on it. Neither did they. It wasn't about punishment. It wasn't a message. It was just space left open for someone who had once decided I didn't belong in my own home. After we cleared the plates, Linda stood by the window. She watched the lake for a while, then said, "It really is beautiful here." I nodded. She turned to me. "You didn't have to invite us." "I know." Outside, the wind moved through the trees like it always had. The chimes tapped gently against the porch beam. One note, then another, then silence again. I'm not asking you to take my side. But there are mornings I still remember that photo, the birthday cake, my mother's smile, my house. And my absence. No one crossed my name out. They just never wrote it down. Sometimes what hurts most isn't what's said, it's what's quietly decided without you. No slamming doors, no shouting. Just a seat. You built a room you opened quietly, filled without you. If you've ever been the one who gave quietly, if you've ever found out the family story was told without your name in it, then maybe you know what it's like to be erased with a smile. I'm not asking you to comment or explain. Just this, what's one word you wish they'd said to you? One word you waited for. One word you still hear even in silence. Leave it below. No judgment, no details, just the word.